When you're in a stressful situation, have you ever wondered what triggers your fight or flight response?
Or with the hot weather right now, have you thought about what is responsible for initiating cooling mechanisms in your body?
The answers lie not in muscles and bones, but in the delicate balance of chemical signals and hormones. Let's explore the system that makes it all happen.
The endocrine system! The endocrine system creates and releases hormones to maintain and coordinate your body's metabolism, energy level, reproduction, growth, and development.
Let us begin by defining a fundamental component, the gland. A gland is an organ that synthesizes substances such as hormones for release into the bloodstream or bodily cavities.
Unlike exocrine glands, endocrine glands are ductless, meaning they release their secretions directly into the circulatory system. This allows hormones to travel throughout the body, reaching distant target cells.
This brings us to the crucial element of this system, hormones. But what are they? Hormones are chemical messengers produced by endocrine glands that travel through the bloodstreams to target cells.
They bind to specific receptors on or within the cells, triggering a cascade of biochemical reactions. You can think of them as specialized keys that fit specific locks, initiating a precise response.
In essence, glands are the organs that produce hormones. Hormones are the chemical messengers that glands release into the bloodstream to trigger responses at target cells.
Here's a side by side comparison between glands and hormones to make you understand it further. Glands. These are organs that produce and secrete substances. They act as factories of the endocrine system. Endocrine glands release hormones directly into the bloodstream. Examples include the pituitary, thyroid, adrenal, and pineal glands.
Hormones. These are chemical messengers produced by glands. They act as the signals of the endocrine system. They travel through the bloodstream to target cells. They bind to receptors on or in cells to trigger specific responses. Examples include insulin, cortisol, and estrogen.
Now, we'll examine the parts of this vital system and understand how they contribute to its overall function. Let's start with the anatomy. The endocrine system comprises various organs and glands, each with unique structures and functions. We can broadly categorize them into endocrine organs and endocrine glands. Endocrine organs are those organs that have other primary functions but also secrete hormones. On the other hand, endocrine glands are specialized tissues that mainly function to produce and secrete hormones directly into the bloodstream. Now that we have those covered, let's individually discuss each part of the endocrine system.
Now, let's begin with the glands right up in our brains. First is the hypothalamus, a crucial brain region that acts as the control center for the endocrine system. It just sits above the pituitary gland and serves as the bridge between the nervous and the endocrine systems. It releases thyrotropin releasing hormone or TRH, which stimulates the pituitary to release thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH. Moreover, the hypothalamus works with other parts of the body's temperature regulating system, such as the skin, sweat glands, and blood vessels.
Let's have a closer look. The hypothalamus acts as the brain's central regulatory hub, constantly receiving a barrage of information from both the body's internal systems and external sensory inputs. This influx includes vital data regarding temperature, blood glucose levels, hormone concentrations, and even emotional states, all transmitted via nerve signals and chemical messengers.
Next, we have the pituitary gland, often called the master gland. It's located at the base of the brain and is divided into the anterior and posterior lobes. The anterior pituitary produces hormones like the growth hormone, which stimulates cell growth, adrenocorticotropic hormone, which stimulates the adrenal glands, and follicle-stimulating hormone, together with the luteinizing hormone, which regulates reproductive functions. The posterior pituitary stores and releases hormones produced by the hypothalamus, such as the antidiuretic hormone, which regulates water balance by controlling the kidney reabsorption, and oxytocin, often called the love hormone, which stimulates uterine contractions during labor and milk release in breast after birth. Want to understand how the pituitary actually works? The pituitary gland, connected to the hypothalamus, acts as a hormonal relay. The hypothalamus releases hormones that signal the anterior pituitary to release its own hormones, like growth hormone or TSH, into the bloodstream. The posterior pituitary, unlike the anterior, stores and releases hormones produced by the hypothalamus, specifically oxytocin and vasopressin, which impact social bonding and fluid balance.
Before we move further down, let's talk about the last gland in your brain, the pineal gland. It is a tiny gland in your brain that secretes the hormone melatonin. Your pineal gland's main job is to help control the circadian cycle of sleep and wakefulness by secreting melatonin. This gland is what tells us that having enough sleep is important. It helps us feel awake and refreshed during the day and help feel relaxed and sleepy at night.
How does the pineal gland work to manage our sleep-wake cycle? The pineal gland's function begins with light detection by the retina. Signals travel to the SCN in the hypothalamus, the body's master clock. In darkness, the SCN signal the pineal gland to produce melatonin. Melatonin production involves converting tryptophan into serotonin, then melatonin, through enzymatic reactions within pinealocytes. This hormone is then released into the bloodstream, circulating throughout the body and binding the receptors, including those in the SCN.
Moving down the neck, we find the thyroid gland, a butterfly-shaped gland located in the front of the neck. It produces thyroid hormones, primarily thyroxine T4 and thyroidotronin T3, which regulate metabolism, which is the complex process of how your body transforms consumed food into energy. The thyroid also produces calcitonin, which helps regulate calcium levels. Let's have a more detailed view of what happens in the thyroid. The process begins with the hypothalamus releasing TRH, which prompts the pituitary gland to release TSH. TSH then travels to the thyroid, stimulating it to produce TR and T4.
Behind the thyroid are the parathyroid glands. These are four pea-sized glands that play a role in bone health. Sometimes they exist along our esophagus or in our chest, where they are called ectopic parathyroid glands. Parathyroid glands release parathyroid hormones which controls the level of calcium in your blood.
This is a closer look of what happens in the parathyroid. The parathyroid glands monitor blood calcium levels. When levels drop, they release PTH. PTH then targets bones, kidneys, and indirectly the intestines to raise calcium. In bones, PTH stimulates calcium release. In kidneys, it increases reabsorption and activates vitamin D, which enhances intestinal absorption.
Next, the thymus, a primary lymphoid organ recognized as having both immune and endocrine functions. This organ acts as the location where T cells are developed and prepared for release into the body, where they perform specialized immune responses. Want to understand it further? T cell precursors from bone marrow enter the thymus, where they encounter thymic epithelial cells. This initiates a selection process. Positive selection ensures T cells recognize self antigens via MHC, while negative selection eliminates those reacting strongly to self preventing autoimmunity. Fun fact: the thymus is most active during childhood. It builds up your T supply before birth and until puberty, after which it gradually shrinks and is replaced by fat.
Nestled in the abdomen, we find the pancreas. It produces the digestive enzymes needed for food digestion. It also produces the hormones glucagon and insulin. These guarantee that your blood and cells contain the proper amount of sugar. So how does this happen? The pancreas islets of Langerhans monitor blood glucose. When levels rise, beta cells release insulin, which prompts cells to absorb glucose and the liver to store it as glycogen, lowering blood sugar. Conversely, when glucose drops, alpha cells release glucagon, stimulating the liver to release stored glucose, raising blood sugar.
Situated on top of the kidneys are the adrenal glands. They consist of two parts, the adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla. The adrenal cortex produces cortisol, which manages stress, and androgens, which contribute to sexual development. The adrenal medulla also releases adrenaline and noradrenaline, which prepare the body for the famous fight or flight response. Want to know more about this awesome response? The adrenal glands respond to stress in two ways. For immediate fight or flight responses, the adrenal medulla releases epinephrine and norepinephrine triggered by direct nerve signals from the hypothalamus. These hormones increase heart rate, blood pressure, and glucose release. For prolonged stress, the adrenal cortex responds to ACTH from the pituitary, which was stimulated by CRH from the hypothalamus. The cortex releases cortisol, which increases blood glucose and suppresses the immune system.
Found only in women, the ovaries are two small oval-shaped glands located on either side of the uterus. They don't just store and release eggs, they also produce hormone called estrogen and progesterone. These hormones help develop breasts at puberty, regulate the menstrual cycle, and support a pregnancy.
For a more detailed look, the ovary's endocrine function begins with the hypothalamus releasing GnRH, promoting the pituitary to release FSH and LH. FSH stimulates follicle growth and estrogen production. Estrogen thickens the uterine lining and triggers an LH surge, leading to ovulation.
Now, for the male reproductive glands, testicles, which serve two essential purposes. They manufacture testosterone, the hormone responsible for male characteristic, and they generate sperm, vital for reproduction and the continuation of the species. Let's take a deeper dive into how the testicles work. The testicles' endocrine function starts with GnRH from the hypothalamus, triggering the pituitary to release LH and FSH. LH stimulates Leydig cells to produce testosterone, which supports sperm production and male characteristics, while also providing negative feedback to suppress GnRH, LH, and FSH.
Lastly, the placenta, which acts as a temporary critical endocrine organ during pregnancy, secreting essential hormones like estrogen and progesterone to maintain pregnancy, support fetal development, and prepare the mother for childbirth. So, what happens in the work of the placenta? The placenta formed after embryo implantation acts as a temporary endocrine organ. As it matures, the placenta takes over progesterone and estrogen production, supporting uterine lining maintenance, fetal development, and maternal preparation for lactation.
Did you know that other organs in your body release hormones as well? However, they're not something we typically think of as these organs have other more important functions or roles.
First one, our digestive tracts. The largest body organ connected to your endocrine system is your digestive tract. It produces and releases a number of hormones that can affect your metabolism. Geraldine and gastrin are two examples.
Then we have our kidneys. While our kidneys are more commonly known for filtering waste and regulating fluid balance, they also produce and release hormones such as erythropoietin and renin that affect various bodily functions.
Another one is your liver. The liver functions as an endocrine organ by synthesizing hormones for blood pressure regulation, producing IGF-1 for growth, and creating hormones for platelet production. It also metabolizes various hormones and synthesizes binding proteins.
This is the most surprising one, our heart. The heart functions by releasing atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP, and B-type natriuretic peptide, BNP, in response to increased blood volume or pressure.
That sums up the anatomy and physiology of the endocrine system. Each of these parts plays a vital role in the harmonious and balanced manner of functioning our bodies. So, what are the common diseases concerning our endocrine system?
Well, we mainly have diabetes type 1 and 2, hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, polycystic ovary syndrome, and lastly, growth hormone disorders.
Wow, I didn't know that those were the common diseases concerning our endocrine system.
First, diabetes. It has two types, Type 1 is mainly caused by the destruction of immunity of insulin producing cells in the pancreas, leading to insulin deficiency. On the other hand, type 2 diabetes is caused by overall insulin resistance and deficiency. Common treatments are medications such as metformin and insulin therapy.
Next, hypothyroidism, caused by lack of thyroid hormone production, leading to fatigue and slow heart rate. Common treatments are mainly levothyroxine.
On the other hand, hyperthyroidism is caused by the overproduction of thyroid hormones, leading to rapid heart rate and anxiety. Common treatments are anti-thyroid medication and beta blockers.
Another disorder is the polycystic ovary syndrome, commonly known as PCOS. This is a hormonal imbalance affecting females, leading to infertility and irregular menstruation. Common treatments are fertility treatments and hormonal pills.
Now, it's crazy to think with the harmonious balance going inside our body, there are instances where imbalances might happen, resulting in these common diseases. That is why understanding the pathophysiology of endocrine disorders, along with the diagnostic and therapeutic approaches, it is essential not only for an effective patient care, but also for reminding us to take of our health in body.
Before we end this discussion, how about key takeaways to remember the lesson by?
For the fundamentals of the endocrine system,
The endocrine system is a network of glands that produce and secrete hormones.
glands are organs that synthesize substances for release, with endocrine glands releasing hormones directly into the bloodstream.
Hormones are chemical messengers that travel to target cells, triggering specific responses.
For the anatomy and physiology, the endocrine system includes both endocrine organs
For example, heart and kidneys.
and endocrine glands.
For example, adrenal glands and thyroid glands.
Each gland produces specific hormones with distinct functions.
The system regulates growth, metabolism, reproduction, stress response, and fluid balance.
Each gland has a unique anatomical structure and hormone output.
Lastly, for the pathophysiology, endocrine disorders arise from hormone imbalances due to factors like genetics, autoimmune disease, tumors, and environmental influences. Common disorders include diabetes, thyroid dysfunction, PCOS, and growth hormone disorders. Diagnosis involves blood tests, imaging studies, and clinical evaluations, including stimulation/suppression tests.
Now you have your answers for what triggers the famous fight or flight response,
The adrenal glands,
or what regulates our body temperature in this extreme heat.
the hypothalamus,
Not too hard to remember, right? That sums up our journey through the endocrine system.
Thank you for tuning in with us.